everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Monica Vink with the Telecommunications Industry Foundation. Today we have Scott Kisting and Dale Heath with us to talk a little bit about who the organization is and what we do to support safe work practices within the industry. Dale, Scott, thank you so much for being with us here today. Can you walk us through a history of TIF and how it came together and what the organization is about?
Monica, thanks first off to you for coordinating this and coming together so that we can outreach to people and help others. It's fantastic when we get together as friends trying to help the industry, and that's really what TIF was founded for. It's a 501c3 nonprofit that is created to share knowledge. Our industry is an incredibly diverse industry, and we're moving very, very fast. I don't know if you're aware of it or not, but telecommunications seems to change every time we turn around. First started out, you had the big bag phones and everything else. Now we've got more power computing in our hand than what we used to have in our offices. This requires a lot of people, the men and women who do the work every day, to be able to do it in a safe way. TIF's role is not to distract from what's already in place, but to raise up that knowledge. Because when we started in the industry, we didn't have anything like where we are today, did we?
No, we didn't, Scott. It was a completely different world. Monica, when we started, it was about education from person to person. It was about basically taking that knowledge, that tribal knowledge, and then teach one person, teach the next person, teach the next person. It was incredible. I mean, you went to work for some of the most educated people in the world, and you learned a lot. But the problem is we've grown so fast, we needed more places, more facilities so we could educate and train better. And we're actually standing in one of those facilities right today. This is a great facility. You can hear them training in the background. I mean, there's men and women out there that are learning today, and a lot of that knowledge, a lot of that understanding is coming from people that serve for the same knowledge that we're teaching at TIF, that we're helping educate at TIF.
This was one of the things, right? We had all this knowledge, but it was held with individuals in different organizations. And you had organizations like NATE come together. What a fantastic organization to help our contractor side of our industry. You've got WIA out there that's helping with what it does. You've got TIA. This is where our standards come from for the structures that we work on or support, or the cabling that's a part of those structures, the equipment that's being used. It's not just structures at TIA. When you think about all of this coming together, that's what needed to happen. We needed to take it out of the tribal mindset, and we needed to get a common vernacular. Because even though Dale and I both worked in the industry then, we didn't have a lot of consistency between us, did we?
No, we didn't. And in fact, when you read different bulletins, different personal planning advisory notices, when you read standards, every one of them has a vernacular, has a terminology that's being used. What we try to do is we try to pull that together so it's one message being heard out in the market, one ear being listened to.
Then you take the planning advisory notices and where they came from. The real goal of a planning advisory notice is looking at the hierarchy, okay? The first thing we have is what Dale talked about, that tribal knowledge. That's how we do things. That's our best practice is what that's starting to get. What a planning advisory notice is intended for is not to detract from anything, but to point to other things. So it's raising that awareness. It's a quick read, a high level read, to be able to talk to and to speak to what standards apply for a different scope of work, what standards can be looked at, what regulations may apply. And one of the neat things about a planning advisory notice is that it's giving us the opportunity to do toolbox talks from it so that people can learn right there. It raises that awareness so people go, oh, now I got a better understanding what that means when we're talking about a tower's twist, plumb, and tension. If I want to dig further, the planning advisory notice points to the standards. So we lift up what's already in place, right?
What I like about the planning advisory notices is that they actually start with one individual or two or a few. They bring together the knowledge, they bring people together from different organizations, such as Perfect Vision, Valmont Cycle, Comscope, Sabre. They bring those knowledges together from those people, and then they create something. They create something wonderful with the PAN. But the PAN's not the only stopping point, is it, Scott?
No, it's not. It's one of the things that Dale mentioned. We've got those diverse organizations. That's just a small subset of the people that are represented. We have contractors, engineers, regulators. Everyone comes together, sets aside competitive interests, and they're trying to work together. The white papers is something Dale was alluding to. The next step is to go to a white paper. What is the white paper really doing? It's starting to solidify that best practice. It's saying to the industry, hey, we've got to move, we've got to respond because we're evolving constantly in this industry. So the white paper is trying to establish that common vernacular. But that's a part that you play, because part of the white paper is the feedback loop. And we'll get into that in a second. But Dale just enunciated the fact that we've got all those manufacturers. Think about all the other people, including OSHA, that came to help with some of what we were doing. Now, OSHA can't tell us what to do in that regard, but they can give us some assistance. And that's what OSHA did for us. And I think it was one of the most exciting things to see people in that white paper understand roles and responsibilities.
And that's a great part, but the one problem the industry had was, how do we get that information back out? How do we release it? How do we educate on that information? They were creating some wonderful things from these groups. But what TIF came together to try to do is to bring that vehicle together so that we can actually let the world know what the information is. And that's not only getting it out there, but it's also providing it to the right stakeholders, to the right individuals, so that they can actually use that stuff.
And it was exciting for us. As a nonprofit, TIF was able to do things like feed the troops. And you know, when we think about our veteran forces that we have, the men and women that have served our country, it kind of ties into part of what you were talking about before about this facility and the leadership, because they served our country, but now they can come into our industry and do something neat, can't they, Dave?
And it's great when we have them not only protecting us, but now educating our future servers out there. So this is great.
The individual that runs the facility, this particular one we're at today, served our country, actually climbed structures in foreign nations, and now is bringing that knowledge and is over there training individuals. I mean, look at what they're doing in the background, for goodness sakes. They're raising up the quality of work. They're raising up the safe work environment. This is where we get into human dignity, because look at the pride of the men and women that are doing this work. Think about what our industry does. Is there any part of our society today that doesn't rely on our industry? And we're moving very, very fast. And when you look at what these individuals are learning and doing, that's the future. And when we can help support them, now they get to have that pride. And they earn that pride by knowing what they're doing. And that's really what TIF's trying to do. The feedback loop, though, I want to come back to. Can you speak a little bit to why that's important to us, Monica?
Creating that feedback and that dialogue between all the stakeholders in our industry is ever so important. That's what the group is about, and creating that feedback from the field to the manufacturers, to the engineers, to the tower owners, the structure owners, the carriers. That dialogue is what drives this industry forward and really creates the message that TIF is really trying to promote. How do we access the feedback loop, guys?
It's one of the great things to think about as we're talking, Monica. It's really what you've been doing to help us with a little bit of the messaging coming out of TIF. And thanks for volunteering your time, treasure, and talent to support us, as everybody a part of the organization does. It's the website right now, tifonline.org. I mean, you've got it highlighted here for everybody so that they can see the link where to go for the website. Underneath that website, you're going to see some of the information of some of the charitable things we've done. But you're also going to find an access to the PANs, the Planning Advisory Notices, which just raising awareness for everyone. And you're going to see the white papers. And remember, when you access those white papers, if you disagree with something, if there's something that you think needs to be worded different, if you can add value in any shape or form, we want to improve our industry. Please give us feedback. Give us respectful feedback so we can help others.
Use that feedback loop, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I want to thank the men and women out there that have provided all this service and basically given all this expertise. I mean, there's a wonderful host of people out there that are serving the industry today that are creating these papers. But we're just the messaging right today. But these people, they deserve our thanks and respect.
And thank you, Scott, Dale, and all of TIF for the great work that we're doing to move the industry forward.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you.
Thank you.